Wholeness, wholeness, wonderful, beautiful beings, my dear human collective. May this message find you well and whole. Today's message is going to be a bit more real. And side note, I'll do my best to not move my cell phone so much. So I apologize for that if you had to keep looking away from the screen. But it's just me talking amongst the trees. So today's tree talk, here we go. It's going to be mixed with, again, consciousness topics, or topics on consciousness, but also real world issues and all that good stuff. A lot has taken place on a global scale and also nationally, to be quite honest. And it's, I believe, affecting everybody. Everybody is affecting it. And it's getting to a point, I think, human collective, on a collective scale, where we cannot outrun what's happening in other spaces and other places. I was watching Teal Swan's video on her insight on the war that's taking place. And it's not just, people believe war is, what she was mentioning is blowing up everything into smithereens and, weaponry and torture and families being divided, job loss, homelessness and displacement and refugee camps, all that, all the stuff that human beings have gone through, are going through, and possibly will continue based on our current frequency as a collective. But she mentioned that it's more, if anything, local wars that are beginning to bleed and to blend in with each other. And when she said the words local wars, it started to make sense. Now, in Islam, there's a word called jihad, and which means the spiritual internal war that one faces on the spiritual path. If you guys know anything about the little angel on the right and the little demon on the left, that's you, right? That's the dualistic polarization that we face a lot of the time, the internal struggle. Unfortunately, the word jihad has been warped into something to mean to, go after people who do not believe in the same ideologies as you. But if anything, we're seeing that right in our faces. If you have a screen in your face, which I would probably say at this point 85% of humanity has a screen in front of their faces. Older generations, not so much. But the older generations are slowly transitioning out of this world. So it's become very commonplace to see people attached to a digital device such as this. So when she said local wars and how all these wars, political, ideologies on gender and the role of women and rights and jobs and, higher costs of living and, political upheaval in other countries. And then you have all this stuff going on that it's all bleeding into one another. And that's how you, again, enter a much larger scale war, a global war, when you have so many local wars turning into global issues and global issues turning into a local issue. And she made that point very strongly. She goes, that's the thing people need to really look out for. When you have these global issues affecting you on a local scale, and then these local issues affecting other people on a global scale, we in trouble. So as a content creator, as someone that likes to upload information, I also consume a fair amount of it. I've been out of school. Well, I've not been teaching. I'm on summer break for all the teachers out there. So for past 2 weeks or so, I haven't started my massive job search yet. It will be nationwide. Given, the temperature of the job market out there. But yeah, so today's topic, I just really wanted to touch on, and this is just going to be free flow conversation. I don't know if I'll timestamp this or not. So, it is what it is. The topic today is about victimhood, victim mentality, victimization, self-victimization. Why do we do this? How do we do it? And I'll say this, many of you may be in disagreement because a lot of the time when things don't go our way and it deeply affects our reality, when it comes to your living quarters, your money, your relationships, it's all about circumstances. Oh no, I am a victim of circumstance. This external circumstance happened to me, and now I feel weak, powerless, out of control, ungrounded, unsure, doubtful, scared, not sure what to do. All of these emotions are valid. They truly are. And you have to create the space to process these negative, low vibe, low vibration, low frequency experiences. We are human. You cannot deny the human experience. You cannot spiritually bypass the human experience. Truth, the key to connecting to your truth is via experience. That's how people can stand on their truth, because they are experiencing it. Right? So here's the thing of what I've come to the realization, not really realization, but the ups and downs of my life through unemployment, through relationships and breakups, through relocating dozens and dozens and dozens of times throughout my 36 years of life. Choices. We tend, men and women, human beings, we tend to become the victims of our choices. Victims believe that they are choiceless. They do not have the choice. The power of choice has been robbed from them. They have been wronged. Okay? Like I said, when things shift in your life, whether that is job, whether that is a spiritual awakening where you leave a religious order, a relationship, a divorce, a pregnancy or loss of a pregnancy, loss of a loved one, these things where there's like a feeling of mourning, of major loss. These feelings are hard, they're hard. And it can be challenging, but it's only for a season. Whatever goes up must come down, as above, so below. If you experience success, you shall know the opposite of it. If you experience failure, you shall know the opposite of it. But you must stay connected to the channel of choice. You must stay empowered throughout your losses, or what may feel a loss to you at the time. When you make it through the war, you will see what you've gained. You cannot see the results through the war because you see, all you can see is destruction. All you can see is failure, breakdown. I'm very, very sad. I think it's very, very heartbreaking to see how the shadow elite have chosen this. They can they can only choose the path of destruction. Their frequency won't let them go anywhere else, which will be their demise eventually. But it's very, very sad what's happening in the Middle East, and I've always thought that that energy in the sand, in the desert, I believe, this is my personal belief, that because I've traveled a lot and I have a connection to the land anywhere that I go, that's why nature, is very, very important to me. Going out there, touching the soil, the grass, the trees, breathing the fresh air is important. The land will tell you things. And in my spiritual practices, when I would connect with the earth energy of a place where I reside or live, you can pick up a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight on the frequency and vibration of where you live. And I always believed, that the Middle East was a very cursed land. Very cursed land. A lot of bloodshed, a lot of control. Why do I believe this? Because humanity has raped the mother, the goddess, out of reality, out of education, out of spirituality, religion, out of family, community. The mother goddess has been raped out of that land for a long time, for centuries and centuries, millennia probably at this point. And so with that, I believe the mother goddess cursed that desert out there. Now, what is a curse? I think a curse is the inversion of something. It is the withdrawal, the division. There's been a divide, a major divide. And so since, because you can see it, and it manifests in physical form, how they treat women over there, how they treat their daughters, their nieces, their sisters, their mothers, their grandmothers, their aunties, right? How they treat their men, their boys, their uncles, their fathers, grandfathers. It's all fragmented. And so I don't feel like that land will know peace, will know wholeness and unity until the great mother goddess returns, until she is accepted once again, which, again, like I said, human consciousness or consciousness itself is fragmented. We're like God. We're fragmented, billions and billions of fragments of God knowing itself again. And societies, empires they've risen and they've fallen. And all throughout these cycles of empires that fall, that are born, and then they die off, it's like it keeps expanding within itself, without itself. Don't mean to get too woo-woo, but when war is an act, blood sacrifice. I think I made a video on this a while back. It is an act of blood sacrifice. It is an inversion of love. It is evil act. And it feeds a certain frequency, certain entities. And we can name it, I fight in the name of my home, I fight in the name of glory, of righteousness, of a god or goddess, but war is war. You shed blood on another for any kind of gain. Well, that's a sacrifice. That's a ritual. It's very ritualistic what's happening now. So, back to choices. We are the victims of our choices. And even not making a choice is a choice. You believe that you have no choice. That's a choice. You believe that you are restricted, that you are not free, that you are a slave. That's a choice. And even what I'm seeing in the job market, like what I'm facing personally right now, is I have to make some really big decisions that I know by 2030, based on the decisions I make right now, by 2029, don't mean to prophesize, but sometimes I get some insight on some really big dates, and 2029 is a big one, and it's fast approaching. So on an individual level, I feel like the choices I make now will have a ripple effect into how my path will unfold in the next few years. So some of the big choices I'm facing, whether to stay in the Midwest, whether to renew my lease, whether to skip town and move on to another space, new energy, new people, new communities, whether to take out more loans to finish grad school. Oh gosh. Right, I'm actually taking a break from studying. I'm working on a project right now, and have you guys ever felt so like, okay, I'm sure everyone's felt this way, but you have to force yourself to do something that you do not resonate with and you see no purpose in. It really dawned on me, because the feeling, it's a weight on my shoulders, this project, these classes right now, because of, what they did and how their education is pretty much not a reliable source of stability. The medical field and education. The medical field will be the last system that will have a huge crash out. So yeah, when I hear people talk about the student loan thing, because I owe. I'm not, I'm not gonna, again, it's part of the conditioning and the programming. Most Americans are not financially literate, and that's intentional. When you have so many young American students wanting to claw themselves out of being broke or poverty, which poverty is a mindset, but being broke, being in the low income bracket in the US, people will do anything and everything to get out of that. And to do it legally and safely, they take out the student loans, because these universities have become corrupt. They've become very corrupted. They set you up and they tell you the value of your degree is going to ensure that you will receive employment, stable employment, and that you will be paid based on the value of your degree, which is a lie. Right? Big business. They go up. Watch one video, and the economist was saying it was every 9 years the college cost of college doubles or triples. This is all intentional, and it's all a setup, and it's very disheartening, like when I hear people complain about people taking out student loans. It's like this, it's very sad, because I don't look down on people. I understand. I was one of those people. I didn't come from that background of financial literacy, how to budget a pocketbook, how to, open up a Roth IRA, how to make investments. These are things that they do not teach in the public schools. They do not want educated persons that know how to manage their finances, their personal finances, because that would increase the likelihood of competition in the market. It would hurt the corporations, if anything. So they hurt education the most, because education is what can set your mind free. You don't need to put yourself thousands of dollars in student loan debt to become educated, right? You just don't. But access to knowledge going to school makes access to that knowledge much, much easier, more effective, more resources for you to play with. But to see it now, I see it for what it is. And I'm questioning, like, okay, well, the value of a college degree and master's degree is nothing. I'm like, I don't want to say the word worthless, but it's worthless. Tech industry, I knew tech was going to like crash out in itself. I called that like 15, 20 years ago. You know? I was like, oh, well, they're just going to write codes that will eventually wipe out their positions. Don't they understand that? But, you know, human beings can be arrogant and prideful and believe that one Ivy League college degree is going to keep you from getting fired. Very interesting times indeed. You know, and I'm just so much wanting to do the right thing for myself. You know, and also I have a lot of compassion to people that, you know, do things illegally or do things that are, let's just say, frowned upon in society. You know, they're literally stacking the weight of trying to make it in society right now is heavy, right? That's why it's like I have to redefine what success is for myself. Because I always thought, you know, okay, having a steady job, steady income, living on my own, you know, paying my bills on time, that to me is normal, expected, and an example of being successful in some way. You know, but people look down on other people if they live with their parents, you know, or they have roommates. If they're working multiple jobs, that means that, you know, you're struggling. You're low class. You know, it's something. Do I spend the rest of my days and my decades trying to fight for my place in the world and then try to sustain that place in the world? It's rough. It's rough. When you play by the rules, you get fucked over, and that's just how the system's built. There's no niceness about it. That's why the corporations and the shadow elite, you know, work how they work, because they know this. They have the capacity to be heartless. And so when you have heartful people just trying to live their lives, what happens then? Sadly enough, you get violence, you get disorder, you get social unrest, you get a lot of fear, division. Even if I dreamt of having a child, it wouldn't be very viable. It's not a... It just seems like a fantasy at this point. It doesn't seem reasonable. I even have a friend who's in the medical field, and they're taking, you know, I would say not extreme precaution, but to permanently eliminate the possibility of having more kids, if you know what I mean. Just so that they don't have to, I mean, there's other reasons why, but, and they're not struggling or anything. They live a very, very comfortable life, but just the type of times we're in right now, I really feel for parents, men and women that are raising kids, multiple kids, during these times. My compassion goes out to them, because that has to be rough. And that's just for working class parents, you know, raising multiple kids. I even talked about the parents who are on Section 8 and heavily relying on state aid, on the daddy government to come in and help them. So here's my overall, I would say, premonition of education within the next 10 years. 5 to 10 years. But at least 10 years from now. They've obliterated special education positions within the district that I used to work for. And they just are non-existent now, moving into the fall. Special education is a special program called Individualized Educational Program, IEP, for students who exhibit medically diagnosed intellectual disabilities, emotional disabilities, physical disabilities, neurological disabilities, all the disabilities. It is very difficult to get an IEP. It's not easy. But once you have it, that safeguards the child and allows the child to receive services to increase the enrichment of their overall education so that they can graduate high school. Sounds very efficient, doesn't it? Sounds very reliable and grounded, and it seems like it could be very successful. Special education has become a joke. Very heartbreaking for me to say this. I've cried tears about it. I'm very upset about it. I've been in and out of education for, I think since 2018. 2017. So almost 10 years, so about solid 8 years. Substitute teacher first, then I worked full time, then COVID happened, shut down the schools, right? So now I'm questioning, should I even continue with the master's degree? And given the job market and that tech is now taking over, AI is now taking over jobs. Human beings, we've done this to ourselves. So, you know, again, victim mentality. Victim mentality always externalizes. You know, well, it's the tech companies that did this. I'm sorry, who's using AI? We are, aren't we? Personally, I don't. I try to avoid it at all costs. But even Google search is a form of AI at this point. So we're all using it. And that's what's feeding the systems that they put in place for this very big issue now. So back to the IEP. So why do I say that the IEP program as it is now is ineffective and just kind of pointless? I think there'll have to be another discussion, but there's valid reasons why I say that. But this is what's going to go down. And because of a lot of the executive orders and the dismantling of the Department of Education, they're going to bring the Department of Education back. That's the thing. But they're going to give it a different name. They're going to re-establish the whole special education system, where it's not going to just serve the students with intellectual disabilities or gifts, because that's also a thing in IEP. If you are you show exceptional skills or capabilities, intellectual capabilities, you also get an IEP, because that's a different, you're performing years above your peers. Then you have to have an individualized program that meets your needs. But he was told to dismantle it so that they can further push their agenda for what is to come in the next decade, which is this. COVID was a trial run, okay? I was teaching 4th grade. I was in, January 2020. Got sick. I caught something. I don't know if it was COVID or not, but it was about a week before I went back to school. Mid-January, that's when shit, like, they started closing down everything, shutting down everything. Kids were not allowed to come to school. Whoop-de-woo. We were all there. We know it, right? It was a cluster, let me tell you. And I know from the get that kids who had IEPs that were in my general education 4th grade classroom did not receive services. I could tell you that right now. The services that they need. Why? Because nothing has ever happened like this before. So no one was prepared. So we were basically scrambling around trying to get lesson plans up, posted. We were posting on Facebook. Then we were told to make a Google Classroom. Then we were told to make packets so that parents can come pick up the packets and then drop off the packets when the packets were completed. Was that effective? No, because in low income communities, parents are working multiple jobs. They don't have the time to sit and tutor their kids. That's just the pinpoint blank honest truth. So by February, I had some sort of a system down, still getting paid, mind you, because it was contractual. So I was under I was on my 2nd year teaching, but it was the annual contract you sign every year. So still getting paid, still able to pay my bills, stayed at home a lot. It was all just it gave me the time to reevaluate what I wanted to do, the next move, because no schools were open. And some schools were closed indefinitely. Our school, unfortunately, was closing indefinitely anyway. So I would have to enter into the teaching job market anyway. So I was looking around, and anyway, so my point was, with the curriculum, the kids were told to take their little Chromebooks home so that they could do online assignments. And that's how this whole thing, this new way of teaching, became digitized. Education has formally become a digitized experience. Okay? If you're not incorporating the digital device in your curriculum, you're looked at a little bit funny, and you are printing off quite a lot of paper, right? But that's how they introduced the digitized educational system. So fast forward a few years later, I end up teaching at a middle school, and I noticed that kids with or without IEPs, they had the option to do homeschooling. And homeschooling literally was all online. So very little social interaction with their peers. Some kids ended up coming back because the social disconnection was too much for them. Right? I mean, that's just part of it. But this is my premonition of what is to come. Your destabilized education system on a federal level, right? Where a lot of schools get their money. And then you allow the states to figure out what to do, how to handle it, so that then they can, micromanage the districts that receive grants and funding from on a state level. And so within the next few years, and I believe this will be either before he leaves office or after, they're going to give the education department a new name, a new everything. Just revamp it into something else to where kids will be yanked out of the public schools. All right? Your kids will be sitting at home, staring at their computer, working from their homeschool kits that I believe the state will send out to homes, like their science kits, English literature, you know, things like that. But all of it is going to become more and more paperless and more pressing of the buttons. How does this affect teachers? Teachers will no longer really become needed in the classroom. Now people say that will never happen. Okay, like they said with the development of AI software. And now look at the tech industry. Thousands of people being laid off or fired. So the AI software, there will be an AI software program that will be developed. It's probably being developed now. That will meet. So everyone, what I'm trying to say is everyone will have an IEP. Everyone will get an individual educational program that will cater specifically to their needs. Okay? So whatever level, because I've taught kids in the 8th grade level that were at kindergarten. Some of them had intellectual disabilities. That's one thing. Most either they needed an IEP and never got one, or the previous, school years in school failed them. Okay? Because at 13, 14 years old, these kids, they don't know how to write, they don't know how to read. Okay, they don't know how to write a paper. They start crying when you tell them to write one paragraph. And these kids are going to high school. I'm not insulting them, right? I'm not, because they're children. We, as society, did this to them. And if you leave yourself out, I don't have any kids. Rethink. Think again, okay? Think again. So we're all connected here. We all affect each other, regardless. That is what's to come. So technically, a kid really doesn't have to leave home to go to school. Everyone will be homeschooled. Educational system will become incredibly competitive. You will have teachers, they're going to probably develop teaching jobs that will help develop software programs for at-home IEP services. That's a job opportunity. Because then you're going to have people going against tech and educators. So the tech people and educators are going to go to war with each other for a while. A lot of educators I know are getting into tech because they see the connection. They see a brand new industry that's about to unfold. So you know how to do tech, you know how to develop software, and you have teaching experience. You're going to be in the job market in high demand, because tech heads don't really give a shit about how to do class management, how to formulate lesson plans, projects, how to communicate with parents effectively, all that other stuff. I'm not saying that they're not people persons, but they typically spend a lot of time sitting in front of a laptop and a computer. So yeah, that's going to be the new job market, or the new thing in the education arena. Principals will no longer, I think, will be the first ones that, they will no longer be needed, because principals make 6 figures a year. So they're going to want to not have to pay out that much And they usually have more than 15 years of experience in teaching, and yeah, so their salaries, that they would be an expensive employee to invest in. So they're gonna go for, on the low end, someone who has a bachelor's degree or master's degree in education, but also certified license in tech development, all that good stuff. They're gonna pay them probably under 6 figures, probably, but they'll make a good living. But these jobs will be few and far between. Few and far between. They're pushing out doctors in the medical field. They're pushing out doctors like hotcakes. What do I mean? Tell me if you have a nurse practitioner. Nurse practitioners, about when I was in 2014 is when they really started pushing nurse practitioners in the medical field. When I started out as a mental health tech CNA at a psych hospital, and they are taking the place of actual physicians who spend a good portion, 15 years of their life in medical school, residency, taking out $200,000 in student loan debt. Okay. And so yeah, it's real. These nurse practitioners are paid way less, by probably half of what doctors make. Extremely good pay though, but it's cheaper for hospitals or the system, the healthcare system that they're based in, to afford them. It's cheaper for them. It's all business, all money. Money. So that is what's happening. That's what will happen. All right, and it's good. It's like they're gonna ease into it. Cause I'm looking at myself. I'm like, they tell us we have a teacher shortage, but then they lay off the teachers. They're cutting special education funding. What's up with that? Do a little bit of research and things start to make sense. Follow the money. Follow the money. So your kids will be taught by AI. Eventually, probably 20 years from now, this AI program, software program, will go under one name, just like Siri, just like Alexa. She'll have a name. It'll be feminine, because there's something about feminine energy in female teachers, or male. It doesn't matter at this point. It'll be genderless. That's what's going to teach our babies. So yes, 50 years from now, there will be a chip, maybe less. About 50 years from now, there will be a chip implanted in people where you don't even have to engage in lessons. You download programs into your head, and you master. You're exposed to the skill sets and concepts that you'll need to know within seconds. No university needed, no college, no training, no apprenticeship. We can't even fathom. You guys probably at this point think I've watched too much sci-fi. And so I question, am I assisting? Am I truly helping these kids with what's in place? Am I feeding the system so then I can wait for them to fire me? You give me the boot? Or should I be selfish? Oh, it's a froggy. Oh, a dead frog. Oh, I'm sorry, frog. Oh, hope you had a good life. Guys, I just almost ran into a bush. Good Lord. Aw. Bismillah, little frog. I have to look up what that is. Dead frog. I have to sit with that. Just finished up part of my design for my animal spirit medicine, or my spirit animal medicine deck that I'm really pumped to share with you guys. It's almost there. So yeah, that's what's coming in few more decades. But from right now, from what I see within the next 10 to 15 years, private schools are going to get hit real hard too eventually, but private schools get private money. So it's going to be kind of a slow, because here's the thing, they've opened up what they call it vouchers. So people who can't necessarily afford to go to upscale schools that cost a few $1,000s a year, they are low-income families are given vouchers so that their kid can attend. But then what we're seeing is that with the low-income students coming in, they typically will score much lower on reading and math. That's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. And so that's affecting the overall state testing results for private schools, which, I mean, affects their reputation and could possibly affect their money in the long run, right? If there's a donor that went to Notre Dame or Harvard, and they're donating $50,000 a year, $25,000 a year, and they're seeing that your test results are going down, and you tell them, oh, well, it's because of low-income kids coming in that haven't gotten the proper education, or they went to a low-income, elementary school. Yeah, right? Business, money. So service jobs are not stable. Very, very sad. And now I'm like, what do I do now? My lease is up in September, and usually the fall, early spring and fall is when I usually make really big moves and travel and relocate. And so my job search will officially start pretty soon. I would look into international travel, but given the current political climate, not a great time to travel internationally. So I don't know, if I leave, will they let me back in? Would I be kicked out of another country because, like, if I go to Europe, I go to a European country that's in disagreement with the US, would they deny my visa while I'm there? I have to figure out how to come up with thousands of dollars to come back. Because when I went to Europe for the first time, you had better get your ass to that meeting to get your visa. You know what I'm saying? Or they don't play with immigration. Just don't. It's nothing to play with. They ain't the one. Don't do it. Thought about leaving permanently, but again, political climate. There's something about the land of the US that Americans take for granted. If you cross country, take a couple of days, takes at least 2 days via car, cross country, to see a good portion of the US. And sorry if I'm a little out of breath, I'm going uphill a little bit. There's something about seeing the vast land. I mean, you have your small towns, you have your local cities, and then you have heavily populated areas. But most people underestimate the land we have here. It is bountiful. Bountiful. We take that under we don't take that under consideration, because everybody wants that, is chasing that salary. Everybody's, chasing that new iPhone. Everybody's chasing a life and an illusion that has been set up to keep them trapped. So what is a degree? If anything, I feel like I'm being challenged right now. Do I tap into my reserves and become ruthless in a way where all I focus in on is building myself to financial freedom? Right? Staying centered, of course. And you guys, I am not a materialistic woman. I'm not. I can get by with very little materialism. I don't need the newest clothes, even though I prefer organic, right? Ethically made. But I really don't demand a lot. However, I demand my damn freedom. And, chasing after a master's degree, which I know will put me further in debt, will take a lot of energy away from me actually figuring out how to get myself out of financial debt. It's a tricky situation. It is a tricky situation. And another suggestion I'll make, be very careful on who you seek advice from. I'm having to recalibrate my approach on who and how and what I speak of with certain people, because if people are unhappy with where they're at life and they believe that you're doing better in any area of your life, they want you to be where they're at without telling you that they want you to be where they're at. That's a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships that are like that. You don't know that they really just want to keep you exactly where they're at or below. And I'm not talking about just financially. I'm talking about your state of mind. Because you can live out of a van, have no toilet to piss in. You go shower at a gym, get a gym membership somewhere, live out of a van, work multiple jobs, paying off your debt, live in your Villa Loca, right? And be incredibly spiritually strong and solid within yourself. And you feel free. You're feeding that freedom within yourself, that liberated part of your spirit, and you're good. Or you can sign another lease, rent for 1 bedroom right now is $1,000 a month. Estimation, but at least $900. Wow. And I know I mentioned this before in one of my videos. I never felt so free more free than I did in 2020. Between 2020 and 2021. 2021 I met a person, threw me off I was on a trajectory. And I said, oh, relationship, and it threw me off a bit. But initially when I was on that road, I never felt more free. And now you can say, well, you can do that, but gas prices are going to be high. Look, there's pros and cons to everything, person. If you're thinking that, watching this, there's pros and cons to everything. You gotta weigh it out. Be logical, rational, So, being an educated person, owing thousands in debt, trying to do the right thing, seeing the future of where education is. And I'm not just talking about elementary and primary school, primary education. I'm talking about university. Most of my classes have been online. Oh my God. When I was in college, it was a rare thing to have online classes. Almost unheard of. It just started to gain a little bit more traction because some professors would post things online and would have you submit assignments online. So they introduced, you see, when any time they come up with a brand new system or a prototype or a new practice in whether that's in a medical or business or tech or banking or educational system, pay attention because they're planting a seed for later. Back in the early 2000s when I was an undergrad, they would have some professors who were more tech head than the other professors would have you upload your work online. Just a little tiny assignments, nothing big, nothing juicy, just a little quiz, a little short answer there, you know? And now you can receive a whole master's degree online without ever meeting your professor. Now, I had to request a meeting with at least one of my professors online. I had to do that. If I wouldn't have never met this professor. Only met her once. I'm in good academic standing so far with my grad work. I mean, literally, it's like probably 3.7 A's, maybe 1 B. A's and B's, good. I'm good. The big question is for myself, and maybe you all are facing this: risk assessment. What are the risks of me staying where I'm at, taking on another $10,000 to finish a degree? Because now the more educated you are, the higher the probability you're not going to get hired. That's a setup. They set us up to fail. See, when you're 20, you don't see it. At 36, you begin to see shit. They set you up to fail. Well, you never should have took out those loans. Touché. I was ignorant. I didn't know. I know now, though. And so it's like... So, I literally feel like the universe is like, carve out your own fucking path. Do what you gotta do, but set yourself free. So I know within the next year I'm going to be working my ass off. I just know. Whether I dip out and leave town and for a new state, new city, new region, or I stay, this girl right here will be working multiple jobs. Renting doesn't seem like a viable source of income. Reliable source of income. Now, what did I just say? It's a reliable source of income to the owners and the landowners. What I meant to say, it's not a financial investment. They're racking up the prices on places that when oh, and yeah, cohabitation, out of the question. I don't do that no more. I didn't say no, I would never have another house and like do roommates or housemates. I didn't say that. But cohabitation, meaning you have a certain level of involvement with another person, dating, if you will, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You will lose more than what you will gain. If I'm cohabitating with a partner, we're married, pinpoint blank. Now, do I believe in the constitution of marriage? It is a business contract. The point of marriage is that you stay together. But if you're thinking and having doubts of divorce, you should not marry that person. Right? But you don't know. You take a risk. Again, risk assessment. That's where I'm at right now, because every decision I make isn't bad or good, but the risks can work in my favor or not in my favor at all. You could say, oh, why don't you move in with the relative? Why don't you move in with your parents? All due respect to my father and my mother, for they gave me life. I will say this. No. Yeah, no. I have a very specific way that I live, and it affects other people in a positive way. But the negative part that's in them hates that. So they go to war with me. Nope. That's the best way I can say that without being offensive or disrespectful. I have negative parts too. Come on, don't get it twisted. I've lived with my parents separately because they're separated, or they don't live together like that. They're not together. I lived with both of them individually. moved back with my mom for a time. That was no. Live with boyfriends. Oh, I don't do the boyfriend thing. No. You're not a boy, you're a man. Man up. That's weird. I never like the term boyfriend, girlfriend. I'm not a friend. Yes, we have friendship in the relationship, but I ain't your little friend. I'm someone who's significant. I'm someone that if you are bleeding and pooping and shitting and you're down and out, you have a psychological break, I'm the person that you can rely on. If I am pooping and bleeding and having a psychological break, I know that you can do that for me. That's not just a little friend, little girlfriend. No, I don't do that girlfriend boyfriend shit. I don't. Sorry, standards. I don't do the booed up, shacking up. Nope. That's one thing. If anything, I could go back and do it over, I would. That's how you know the seriousness of a connection. But then you got to be careful, because there are nefarious, nasty ass, crazy ass lunatics out there that will hide. So you got to be careful, because you can end up marrying Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And, it is what it is. Marry somebody you know that if it really did the marriage broke down, you could still remain on good terms with. That says a lot. If you're like, I know that if we fell out, then I know for a fact we would be respectful and we would be happy and we would for each other, and we would morally support the other. That's the type of person. You don't want to marry somebody that you know that they would be your living, breathing worst enemy ever. That ain't the person to marry. So why did I bring up relationships in this? Right? Victimhood mentality. When you feel wronged, you gotta blame somebody. right? Choices. We choose who we allow in our life. We choose to stay. We choose to leave. We choose how we treat them. We choose if someone treats you a certain way that you don't like and you continue to stay with them after talking, counseling, therapy, all that, and you're still choosing with them, you're setting yourself up. Then yeah, you will be victimized. Yes. I do believe in effort, you know. I do believe in that. But I bring up with this whole talking about finances and making big choices and risk assessment. During these times, relationships, risk assessment. That's why a lot of people do the whole cohabitation thing, because they believe that it's going to be much easier to get away and run than marry. If you're even on that frequency, you're with the wrong fucking person. Excuse my French. If you're thinking to yourself, no, I will give my body, my money, my time, my energy, life force energy, my support, money, my time, my creativity, my support, money and time to this person, but I want to make sure that I can get out. And get out with ease. We've all been there. We've all moved too fast in relationships before. You know somebody for a few weeks and then you move in. Been there. Done that. Or, give somebody a whole several months. I've done that too. Almost a year. Almost. So it's risk. Nothing is guaranteed. Everything must be weighed out now. And that's how I have to approach my very big decisions. I don't know why the song if I stay there will be da-da. Should I stay or should I go now? Yeah, that song. If I stay there will be trouble. If I go there will be double. I don't know if I got the words right, but if you made it this long, bless your heart. This is more, if anything, a processing video. I'm not gonna, yes, I want to talk about spirituality, spirit animals, and my tree medicine, all that good stuff, but I'm also human, guys, and I'm also in reality, and I pay my taxes. I'm going through what many people are going through right now, and I don't want to hide behind, I don't want to be like this spiritual, and now we're going to talk about the awakening with the divine. Like, I can be that, do that, but I want to be real too, because there's a thing called growth, and with growth there's pain sometimes and being uncomfortable, and then there is release and relief. If I become a permanent nomadic traveler, there's risks to that. There just is. If I know what doesn't work, and I know that cohabitation doesn't work. There's no legal, and that's the thing. People risk assess. They use risk assessment with you too, and you just don't know it. Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. Being to being, I love you, I love you. No, you have to look at behavior. Behavior is a language. A language is something you must comprehend and understand and listen to. And if you're not listening and observing, you're screwing yourself big time. Well, I'm coming to a close to my long walk. Took an hour to, take a break from staring at my screen. This project is already late. She gave me an extension. But it is, I understand why some people are so mean and miserable and they bully people in workplaces, because they're doing something that they're forced to do because they have to. I would never mistreat others though. God, no. Again, consequences of the choices that you make. Consequences of the choices that I've made. I made choices in good faith to return back to education, and that fell through for reasons that I cannot fully understand until I'm out of it completely. And I'm like, job security, security. I can understand why people make OnlyFans. I can understand why people marry money. You know? God, but I just could not ever force myself to live a life like that. To wake up next to somebody that's probably double my age, right? And look at them every day and lie to them. Lie to them about how I care for them. Just so that I can live safely. And I know people like that. I know people like that. Not many, but there's a few people in my life I met and I know that would do that in a heartbeat. Marry money, you know, and yet they stay at home and they're miserable. Everything's paid for though. And then this online narrative I'm seeing, where I'm watching some of these videos of people that are, you know, the job market's it's like that, right? And these AI commercials come on and they're like, you want to make $2 million, you want to learn how to make $20,000 in a month? You want to make $6 million by the end of this year? People must wake up and realize that we are the product. In the Shadow Elite's eyes, we are the product. MLM 101. How do I know that? Experience. You know, the little pyramid scheme. They make a promise. If you work hard enough, you'll be right at the top. And if you preach that to thousands of other people, you'll be a blue diamond. You'll make blue diamond. It's not about the products. It's about selling the dream to enough people that will invest in an illusion, and then that's how you become wealthy. And I just thought, oh, pyramid scheme is only, you know, pyramid scheme, Amway, all essential oils, all that other stuff. No, that's how society is run. Everybody does it. And that's kind of what the argument is if you ever get into a MLM. Well, everybody does it. And that's true. The whole system's rigged that way. If I sell a dream to enough people, and not, even though that dream is an illusion, if I sell this ideology, this idea to enough people that they believe in me so much that they're going to invest hundreds, thousands of dollars, well then. But me being the good-natured and person, integrity, like good-natured people tend to get lost in the fold. You know, to do something ethically and morally right, that's true and honest, well, you're not going to be a millionaire. You're just not. In order to be a millionaire, people have to be at the bottom of you. And that's hard for me. That's hard. But it's also challenging living yet in another MLM of education, of public service. Everything's an MLM. Every system in place is an MLM. So that's why the nomadic way of life to me is attractive. It's like, well, if I'm, gonna live in this, if I want to live in this, then I'd rather live it the way that best suits my character and suits my values and principles. I'm sweating so bad. This humid weather is just bleh. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else for me to say at this point, but I hope it's helped somebody. It was a nice mental break. I think the rest of these videos for the next couple, maybe another week or so, I'll just be processing. Next week I'll be processing, and then I'm gonna start making some moves. And this might uproot my life. Yeah. When you realize how everything's a scam. I don't agree with illegal activities or why people do illegal shit, but I get it. I get it. People get tired, and they get tired of being at the bottom all the time, putting in more work, and very little result. I'm not a criminal though, so I am not. July seems much clearer, but June is very muddy. But if anything, risk assessment and checking the victimhood, the victim archetype, keeping that in check. Because it's super easy to go, woe is me, and feel sorry for yourself. I did about a week ago. I was upset. I was pissed off, to be honest. I was very hurt. Because you can tell people that you don't want them or that things aren't working out in a professional way and be honest and upfront. But to me, it's very nefarious if you are withholding information and gatekeeping information on purpose. Then I lose all respect for you. Like, I have no respect. Oh God. Oh, my car's hot. Well, oof. Yeah, I'm glad I went on that walk though, even though I'm like burning. Humidity is, ugh. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to be very rational, logical, and practical. I'm gonna have to do a lot of calculating with numbers, because it's a numbers game at this point. I could really give two shits about career. Seeing for what it is, it's just numbers for me at this point. And being very, 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 very present and calculating, because when you see how everything's rigged, every freaking thing, It's disheartening. You feel angry. You feel confused. You feel unwanted. Ask yourself if you're useful. So even though I feel at home with myself, I don't think my home has found me. So may this message find you well and whole if you survived an hour and 20 minutes. I now will go and complete my project. I don't want to do it. But they pay for the classes, so I'm going to do my best to pass the classes. And then, yeah. But thank you so much for your support. And I love your comments. Ooh, and I need to upload a music video too. I need to do that for you guys. So, all right. Bye.